Good evening. Trying again, or like actually not again, because it's still the same save basically. Uh, this is definitely a statue. Right, this Puku shows up a lot. Let me actually check again. So Boke, Peveja, or Fibesha, Fowa, Goja, Giovena, Jovo, which I Vudukuma. Oh, Makudovu, right. Backwards, Bakujate. Which they say here Bakujati, but I think that may actually just be not the exact same. And I don't think we've seen any I's in here. We've only seen A, U, E, and O. I don't think we've seen any I specifically. Gubuge. Kashe. So Y's here is Shika and here Shika. So that could be just the case that that's, I'm pretty sure, Y's. However, I don't think I'm certain about the she yet. I know the che from Bakujati, but the she I'm not sure about. Right. I also kind of forgot where I stopped last time. These are also weird because they do not follow the pattern here at all. Kubu. I don't think we have anything in that. No. Boo Boo, maybe face. That's not a K. Keshije. Huh. I still hope, because I'm still not entirely certain about, but that my assumption regarding the system, with like one line is an O, no line is an A, the dot is an E, and 2 lines is a U, is correct, because, well, I can't be certain about it. So, the only other thing I have any information to is this here. Is there any other half moon? Not really. Mokubu. Right. So the Kuke shows up twice. Kiku. Not quite Keikaku, but close enough. Buko also no, this shows up somewhere else. The Buko. Here. Right, that's just a translation. I have a feeling that these half moons, that these symbols above, kind of say that this word relates to the same thing. Like this Pumubu and this Dogemu, the Ravoko, the Kuke here and over there, and then the Shoka something. There is nothing that is similar to it, right? Others must continue our work. We fear we will be conquered by another tribe. If I read from the top right to the bottom left, then others must continue our work. Others must continue our work. This would be the last letter in the new sentence. Then you would be the first word in the new sentence, which is we fear we will be conquered by another tribe. We fear we will be conquered by another tribe. And then the next sentence would be this must not stop the great work, which I assume that the is not present, so this must not stop great work. This must not stop great work. And then you would be the last sentence of speak old tongue and contact gods. Speak old tongue and contact gods. That would fit. And the is the only word that's in there 3 times, I'm pretty sure. Now if I go from here, this must not stop great work. Then the keku is the only word that is both here and in the first sentence, and I think it means work. Does the work show up anywhere else? No. This is Shuvu, which I think might mean stone, based on the Jowo. Just have like a different intonation there. And this is the exact same on the back. Right. This must not stop the great work. No, wait. 5, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I believe, wait, how much is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8, this must not stop the great work, right. So it would go to here. And then this is the last sentence. Speak the old tongue and contact the gods. Speak old tongue, contact the gods. Contact gods and, okay. What could be the Mokobo? That's in the... Must not stop. Others must continue our work. This must not stop the great work. But that's the only other letter. I have a feeling this could be an our, or like we. Like a self. Because it shows up in the others must continue our work, and we fear we will be conquered. The problem is that the we fear we will be conquered only shows up once here, except for this letter, which I think means we. But then... Right. We fear we will be conquered by another tribe. So this is solidly set in the second. And I think that this is we and this is our. Both have the bow in it. It doesn't really have to mean anything. Right. Others must continue our work. This must not stop the great work. I don't have bouquet anywhere, do I? I also don't have anything that's similar to bouquet. Except beaucoup, but there's nothing here that would link to God, to gift. Then Fibicha I have set as Pibija. Fova would be Pova. Pova? Do I have Pova anywhere? This is Varbon. Conquer. I believe. Goja is village. Jovena is sky. Jovo stone, which I think is Chofu. This would be Chofena. Or Chofema. Mopocho. Como. Do I have Como anywhere? Buko. Jucate. Not really anything here. Hoover. That could be power? Bouquet, I've said, yeah, bouquet I have there, but I think I only have the there. Here we have Fuji. For Voje. That is not necessarily correct. But for bouquet, I'm pretty certain that it is the same. I assume that every word we have links to directly one word they have, which might not be necessarily correct. Do we have a T? We only have a D, don't we? And the D, how does D look? So these two look very similar. Could be that that's a T. Uku, I still believe, is great. The Nofocho. Because I don't think I have Mupu, no. If it were Mupubu, maybe, but Mupuju, that is more likely temple among the ones I have here. Buko doesn't... I honestly think that might be a T. And we're just gonna... If I say... I could very well be wrong. That this is a TA, ta. And that's a TE. Shooter. Shooter Buko. Shooter Boku. It's a meta. It's just the meta today. Rote. Pumubu. The Pumubu shows up quite a lot, doesn't it? Right, if I say that this is... No, that this is a 2 and this is a toe. Could be wrong. And the only word here we have with a T in it is toke. Oh wait, it can't be T. Of course it can't be T. We already have a T. Right, so that was stupid. It's very similar to the T, but it's not the same. Cut the toe out. So this is still a mystery to me then. We already have Taya. But I don't see Toke anywhere. For all. What consonant are you? This is Uo, Ua. Oh, Tuke. Could be the all. That it's kind of like different pronunciation. I have a feeling this means ha end. But I can't really... Fuvapa. Buku is the... No, bouquet is the gift. Right, I'm gonna go again with words that show up twice. We have the Mokobo, the Jata, the Mokobo does not appear on the... I'm just comparing to here. We have the Jata, which also doesn't appear, and the Keku, which appears twice as well. So we have 3 words in the first sentence that appear twice, which would be others, and another, and work. So there is some other word that is repeated in there. This shows up twice in the same sentence, which, if my assumption is correct, and I assume currently that it's not starting at the bottom because there is no repeat word in the first 5 words here. So if my assumption is correct that this is regarding the same sentence, this is the only word that appears twice in a single sentence. Every other word only appears in different sentences. Now, this is, I think, we. Which is a bit of a problem because I still don't know how to pronounce that. Because I don't know one of the letters. Right, this was 5, and then the next one was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This one, repeating in the first and the second sentence. But the different signs above. Is it like conjugation, maybe? Could be some form of conjugation. Hello. It's a weird little game called Epigraph, in which you are tasked with basically translating an unknown language based on some artifacts you have around, and like this little these two basically like letters. The key phone to provide the following translation, right. I mean, yeah, gamified archaeology. I don't think it's actually archaeology, not in that sense. It's more like anthropology? No, that's more the biological thing. Like, I don't actually know what the study of language is called. No clue. There's nothing with a me or a ne at the start. Yeah. But basically, there are 3 words here which are, I believe, the actual only 3-4 letter words in the other language, and 8 letter words in this, because this appears to always be like a consonant and a vocal, similar to Japanese. What was that? Stars Jovena. But we don't really have the Chu anywhere here. And yeah, the goal is basically to translate this. I still kind of feel like this is... No, it can't be... It can't be and, can it? Because it wouldn't really make a sense. I know this shows up in the Speak the Old Tongue and Contact the Gods. Govu Shooter doesn't... And then here we have the Chuvu, which might be the stone. At this point, I'm mostly just guessing. There's nothing above or below, I don't think. At least not that I can access. Anything with me? Not really. I'd have to look at something that has 3 letters. I can make like... Can I make Pumubu? No. I also cannot make Pebeja. I can't make Makudovu or Bakujati or Pagumaru. I don't have a pair here either. Right. This feels like it's depicting like the sky. With the horizon and stars. Sky would be Juvena in... This, by the way, is not words from this language, but from a similar, apparently neighboring language. And I don't think they overlap entirely. Here we have the Shuta again. Which kind of means like it's a symbol. Because over here we have symbols. And here we have the words for it. So, like, this could be Govu. Or Gobu? No. This could be like meaning, symbol, word. Shurabe. I think we could make Shurabe here anywhere. Somewhere. It doesn't really do anything. Pretty sure about the Pepeja being king. Shurosho doesn't really say anything. I think the Shika is wise. The Karo doesn't tell me anything. I just realized that the G and the K's are just rotated. That's good. Right. Puku, also not sure. Peucha, Pukujati. I would nearly say this could be a K, but we already have K. Gubuge. Makuduvu. Like, most of the stuff I currently have is entirely based on assumptions. Gubuge shows up quite a lot. Yeah. Pebuja, Gubuge. Pebuja. Can I make Gubuge here? No. And also no. So I think my best point is still just like this area. But shooter. Where does the shooter show up? Only here. Here, shooter. That would be sign. Or maybe it's for the old tongue? For old? Then the shooter shows here up twice. Shooter buko. I kinda just wanna see where all the words show up. Like, does the mokobo show up anywhere? Not really. I don't need to turn both around. Yeah, it doesn't really show up anywhere. Let's reset this. The Pumubu. That one shows up a bit more, I believe. Yeah, it shows up here. Which I believe this one on the backside is just a, like, this belongs to... Or like, this is stored in. Does the Pumubu show up here? Yes. Bububuku Pumubu. And the Pumubu shows up here. Which is in the last sentence. I have a feeling that this might be... If I just check the last sentence, which would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 words. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 words. Actually, the other way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 words. It would begin with shooter. No idea what this is. We have a wall. Buko and Dogemu. So let's see. The Buko shows up there. And here. Here. That shows up quite a lot. On every single side of the obelisk. And here. On the statue. Buko Pumubu again. I don't think so. I think they're more similar to like Korean signs. If you check, for example, so the first two words I was able to set based on these two. Because I know three words. I know Pagumaru, I know Makudovu, and I know Bakujati. So I set the ku here, because it's the only two four-letter words that I could find. Then I checked this one, and assumed that it must mean Pagumaru. So I checked for this ma, which is also in here, and said this is Makudovu, this is Bakujati. Then I basically just checked that after a while that they always have a similar form. Like this B is always a line up, triangle, and line down. And then the dot means an E. No dot is A. Two lines is Ku and one line is O. So it's more like, I think Korea uses something like this, where they basically have a base letter and then like an addition that does the vocal that joins. I couldn't tell you. I only tried learning Korean for like a month, and then I gave up because I like Japanese more. Buku. That does show up quite a lot. Now, what word does make sense to show up quite a lot in an ancient society? Speak, sure. Contact, sure. Gods, also. Tongue, probably not that much. I think that they didn't have an I. They had an E. That they basically just said Bakujati with an E. They also, as far as I see, only have no addition, like here with the ma and the ba, the dot for E or I, one line for O and two lines for U. I haven't seen any other like qualifiers for an I. Yep. There's my current assumption. It is at least my current assumption that they have only the four vowels. And to be fair, there are... I'm pretty sure, like, if you just look at the normal languages we also have in real life, there are some languages that just do not need that many vowels. Not everything is English and needs to overcomplicate everything with 4 different pronunciations for the same vowel, so that they had to make an entire other language just to show you how it's pronounced. Keshije. I don't think this means face. This could mean like head. I still think that the shaker is wise. Though the she, so I didn't find anything to tell me this is an SH, a she. So I just assumed that. That could very well still be wrong. Right, so I don't think the vo means and. What do you mean as? The wall? Here. I also don't know what these are. I think those are numbers. But I'm not entirely sure about that yet. But for the wall, if you look, line down, triangle, line to the right, line up, line left, and then you just have one line, 2 lines for the woo, and no lines for the va. Oh, maybe that's... This could be math. If the ones on the right... If the ones on the right are numbers, then Vuvapa would be like result. And then Vo could be an and, as in like an addition. I'm not really making notes for this one, I'm just thinking. Because everything is readily available. I make notes for blueprints because it can be like days before I see the same room again. But here, I don't think it's that necessary. If I say... If I just mark the Vuvapa, where else does that show up? Shows up here. Which I believe these texts always kind of just explain what is up here. Like, they explain the images. There's another Vuvapa. There is none there. There is no Vuvapa on this stele. And there's the Vuvapa on the obelisk twice. Da-da. 2K could be all. But does it show up anywhere else? 2K, I'm basically basing this on the Tokay over there. Assuming that they have like slightly different pronunciation of words. That does it show up anywhere else? There's also the Karo again, which 2K Karo was also on the other, on the mural. 2K Karo was also again on the mural. I don't know. Like sometimes there's two dots or like squares, sometimes there's a half moon, a dot, or a triangle, or two triangles, and I have no clue what that means. I assumed various things. I assumed that it relates to the same thing. For example, if you look here, we have a semicircle on the right. So I assumed that maybe these all relate to the same word. Or like to the same thing. But I'm not sure. And here we have king and king, but with different triangles above, so I thought that maybe those are two different kings. But entirely unsure. I thought of that, but I kind of doubt that. There's Shurosho, Tuke, and Urkaro. I also thought that it could be like a verbal conjugation. Like, yeah, or like, what are the words? Imperative and like conditional, but I don't know. That's the problem with that. Possible. But then what would the king with two dots mean? The dots are, by the way, always over the middle of the word. Never anywhere else. There's the Karo again. Like here, he's definitely just running away from them with the stone. Which apparently was mined from this thing, which binds them from the stars somehow. But the word for stone, which I assume is chovo, doesn't show up here anywhere. The chevu, I think, means fight based on the woje here, so vuje. I think everything is right to left. Again, entirely based on the two kings here. Bakujati and Makudovu. Because the ku is the only word, the only letter that shows up in both. And those are, again, the only four-letter words, except for Pagumaru, but it's the only four-letter words that share the same letter at the same location, namely the second syllable. Fuck, you're right. That could be the case. If that is the case, it would be a bit weird, I'm not gonna lie. But if we don't count here, others must continue our work, that would fit. Then we fear we will be conquered by another tribe. But this must not stop the great work. No, that was too much. Others must continue our work. We fear we will be conquered by another tribe. This must not stop great work. Speak old tongue and contact gods. By the way, I assume that they didn't have a the, because there is this is 3 words less than the translation. And the is the only letter, the only word that comes in 3 times. So 5, then the work would be in there. That would fit. Then We fear we will be conquered by another tribe. That's 10. Did I miscount? We fear we will be conquered by another tribe. 9 words, so 1, 4, 7, 9. Caro did show up quite some time now. Right, would it be fear will... It's not conquered. It's not... I don't think it's other. Could that mean tribe? Then we have the next sentence, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 words. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then the last is also 6, which would be those then. If we go from here, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So this is always the 9th word, regardless of whether I count like right to left or left to right. It could mean tribe. It does show up quite a lot, and I don't think, if I look at this, like this could be that another tribe attacked and had a fight. This could be all tribes contributing something. Tribe doesn't show up here, no. Originally, I wanted to play Static Dread today, which I think has now released. Yeah, it is now released. Oh, only like $9. It's not bad. I am very bad with horror, but I really want to try it because it falls under my favorite theming. But yeah, it could very well be that it is read from left to right, but the words are the wrong way around. Which, honestly, would be pretty fucking weird. I don't think I know any like actual language that reads like that. Though to be fair, I don't know a lot of languages. I basically only speak German and English. This letter annoys me because I don't know what it means. There's a bow and then something with an E, with a U at the end. Here we have the... This face is always the same for the king. So you're the king, you're like wise people. Does this maybe mean work? I don't think it does. It shows up here once, but in the last sentence, regardless of how you look at it. I've also wondered if you'd read from top to bottom, but I don't think that's the case. Because if that's the case, you'd read basically this word twice in the first sentence, and there is no word in the first sentence that repeats. And here is the same thing if you start on the left. So I don't think they read top to bottom. I don't think so. So basically, the text I know... So basically, they went with this, which is the cuneiform translation. And the translation is here, and it's basically, others must continue our work. We fear we will be conquered by another tribe. This must not stop the great work. Speak the old tongue and contact the gods. So there is nothing in the text regarding the stele itself, or the obelisk, or the mural, etc. The Mokobo here, because if we start here, this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, then the Mokobo would be repeated between others must continue our work and speak the old tongue and contact the gods. Which doesn't really fit. It does have the same symbol above. Juve doesn't have anything there. I just thought of something. I just thought, and I'm just gonna say my thing first. I think this might be an NA. It would fit, it's definitely something with an A, I just didn't know the first letter. But if it is an NA, then this would be Nari, which is the language of the people we are currently, is like the word, the name of the people we are currently learning the language from. And then this would be Nuno, which I don't know if they just call like the cuneiform or not. But then the Nuno would show up twice here. There could be, but I don't really think it makes a difference. Look at the top. Where? Yep. To be fair, though, I don't think it makes all too much of a difference. Because whether or not you pronounce the... If you... I'm gonna tell you this in like English, the letter E. Like, you know, this letter E is pronounced the same way as the letter I is pronounced in German, as an E. Like, which, fun fact, is kind of confusing if you start out learning it. But it would make sense that if a people call themselves Nari, that they have a letter for an N. But yeah, if you pronounce the E like in English, but assume that the O people have pronounced it like, you know, an I in German, it really doesn't make a difference. And I went with E because all of the words here are spelled with an E. Right, if I go with that's an N, then there should be one more I can set, and that would be the NE. No, yeah, NE. I have na, nu, and no. But a mana doesn't really make... The question is, can I actually do something with that? Nuna... The Nuna does show up quite often, I believe. No, the Nuno shows up quite a lot. Here, Nuno, which I think is the attackers here. And then this would be Rone. Nari shooter, it's a Nari. This could be Nari symbol, Nari word. But Govu, we don't have... If I go word here and say symbol for shooter. Bonu? I'm mostly just always comparing to here. Kuno, not really. Mena. Did we have that just right now? Rune. I assume they have an N. Because, well, they are called the Nari, and I believe most are called based on what they called themselves. The only words we actually know for a fact they had, however, are Makudovu, Bakujati, and Pagomaru. Yeah, those are the only three words, and that's actually their names, that we know they had. Buko Shodu. The N, well, none of the other letters appears anywhere else. Because... yeah. But none of the other letters appears anywhere else, because all of these are not Nari, those are Shuri. And, for example, they write Febeja, and here, if I'm correct, they write Pebeja. So, all of them, everything except Bakujati, Makudovu, and Pagomaru are assumptions. But it would make sense that if you basically, because this is basically a translation, so you'd say this is in that language, and this is in that language. Yeah, but there is... Here is the letter Fabo. So I know that the word conquer is in here somewhere, and here we have fabo instead of vabo. I don't even know if we have a W. I don't think so, actually. Yep, Shika is wise. I think I have that. Yeah, here, Shika, wise. I should probably remove that because I'm pretty sure that is. We have none of really the others. Like here we have Toke and here we have Tuke, and I don't know if that's the same word. And here we have Vuje, which I think might mean fight based on this image. Keshiche. Kumo. Kumo could be the Kono here. They generally have relatively low amounts of N. Like if this is in fact N, they have a very little N here. As there are very few words with N. The must? No, we don't. I don't think we have that yet. Others must. This must not stop the great work. Yeah. It could be the Mokobo. Work great. Okay, so this I don't think means symbol if it's here. Put it back to Shuta. The Mokobo is... Wait, if we read... But if we read right to left, this would be in the speak the old tongue and contact the god. From left to right, this would be in the last sentence. If we read from left to right, this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if we assume this is must, or it is one of the words that is repeated, because these two words are repeated in the first and last sentence, or in the first and third sentence. And must mean work and must. But let's see if the must shows up somewhere else. Nuna. Right, is there any must or work in here? Nope. I think word not. No, I'm gonna delete the tribe. Well, actually, I'm gonna leave that for a second. Is the work anywhere else? Nari Shuta, Nari Govu. Buka Shuta, Buko. It is nowhere else, so it could very well be that those two words mean work and must. Shubuno. Yeah, those two I think are work and must. Well, yeah, which is which? That's a good question, because if they have the same letter, they have the same symbol above each time. which is the letter, which is the downwards. Now the nuno is repeated also either in the first sentence, which is others must continue our work, and in the second, which is we fear we will be conquered by another tribe. Jata, I believe, is other. Though nuno could be other. But there is nuno here. Which could just mean that this is another language. If I just switch this and say nuno means other. Switch that out and just write the spelling on there, Jata. Do we have... Because the nuno showed up now and then. Like, other tribe, great fight. That kind of makes sense. In that case, the nono actually kind of makes more sense than the jata for the other. And the nonu also has different symbols above, which is, if my assumption was correct, that this means different things, that those are related to different others, with one of them continuing the work and one of them conquering us. Yeah, the grammar is very different. The rune shows up also sometimes. The rune only shows up once here. But I assume that is kind of the problem you have whenever you actually try to translate something you've never seen. You always kind of need to guess it out, basically. Didn't the rune show up somewhere? I thought... Oh yeah, here. Okay, so if it's there, I don't think it means will. Wait, what could that be? We fear we will be conquered by another tribe. Pumubu is shown in other tabs, yeah. In the mural here. And I think it has something to do with gods. Because here in the stele, it is in the last sentence, regardless of whether you read from the left to right or the right to left. So, Shuta, Nuna, Shuta, Nuna, Pumubu, Vo, Buko, Dogemu. It could mean language, maybe. Because, yeah, it's related to God, and if you see here, this is basically a temple in which the Pumubu shows up. So I think the Pumubu could be just the gods. The problem I have with if it is speak the old tongue, if it's speak old or tongue, then it doesn't really fit this image, because this doesn't really tell me that they speak. It's more like they get something from the gods here. And otherwise I don't think the Pumubu shows up anywhere. It does here. Which this could mean that it's stored language, or that it's the will of the god. Maybe. Could be speak, yeah. Then Dogemu, I believe, only shows up once. Here we have Pumubu again. The Dogemu, I really believe, only shows up once, doesn't it? There's a lot of Pumubu, which could very well mean language, or speak, as you say here with the stone will speak. Or it could be the gods. Doesn't show up here. Kuvuno. Bonu. Yeah, I'm also only assuming with English and, well, German, but it does show up a lot. I think it's definitely either language or gods. But I honestly, based on this, because if I'm correct, they're building here a temple, or they have built a temple, which I relate more to gods than language. Does it look like a verb? Like, if we check here, it has like the half moon on the right. It shows here up with the half moon to the right. And then here it also shows up with the half moon to the right. It kind of always has the half moon to the right, doesn't it? No, here it has a full moon. I'm pretty sure that Pumubu and Dogemu are language and gods. Kind of sure about that. Speak and spoke. Yeah, that could also be the case. Right. In that case, right, because we fear we will be conquered, and here it has the half moon to the top, which could be future. But then the Chuve doesn't really fit, because in that sentence there is nothing relating to the past. Yeah, I think the moon above would be... No. Because the moon above is basically like a semicircle to the top, which I think is will be conquered, so it's in the future. Do we have another semicircle to the top? Here's again to the right. Is there a semicircle to the left? Or downwards? Because if it's a semicircle to the top, then this would also be will speak. That could actually very much be the case. But then Wubu wouldn't be face. If I assume that it's a verb. Hmm. Okay, but... Right. Here's a problem I have with the assumption that this is the verb like past tense. Because... It wouldn't be the past tense, because this is a speak to the old gods. It's like an either do it now, or like it's an imperative. And not a past, because it's not we spoke to the old gods. And here we have... Right. And then there's also the half moon over the Dogemu, which could mean contact. Actually, now that I look at it, there is nothing here that is in the past. It's others must continue our work. There is we fear we will be conquered, which is in the present and in the future perfect, as you said. Must not stop the great work again, now or in the future. And then speak and contact, which again would be an imperative. I'm pretty sure there's no these. Because there is 3 less words than in the translation. And the "thee" is the only thing that shows up 3 times. Also, if a "thee" was the case, any of these words would have to repeat 3 times, and there is none. I've checked. There is no word that repeats 3 times. So I'm pretty sure that the "thee" isn't there. In that case, shooter would, I believe, be the language, like the tongue. But the shooter, I'm pretty sure, shows up somewhere else. Because I'm pretty sure... Oh yeah. It does show up on in the like symbol stele. On the symbol tablet. Here. But what would this be? Speak the old tongue and contact the gods. Buko does show up quite a lot, I believe. Like, it shows up on the artifact, I know that. There's Buko Dusho. And then there's here Shooter Buko. Shows up there. I'm pretty sure it also shows up on the mural. Like, here we have a Buko. Here we have a Buko. The Buko shows up here as well. So the Buko shows up quite a bit. I have a feeling that shooter could mean gods. Basically, that you have a symbol for the gods, and then like an area of concern, like a god for villages, a god for houses, a god of the sky, something like that. In that case, you are again assuming though that they follow our grammar. Right, if we just say gods and Dogemu contact. Right, so do we have gods here? Gods all. And we're just gonna say this is speak. Then here, the Jake, Bopo, Jake, gods, Buko. Then Buko showed up here. It shows up here for the gods. God speak, that could be the case. Great temple at Pagomaru. God speak. I'm gonna be honest again. Everything I have until now is assumptions. So, more assumptions don't really hurt the overall process, I don't think. God's house. Like, if I say God's house, Mupuju temple. Can I for Mupuju? No, I cannot. There's the shooter again. I have the distinct feeling that speak the old tongue and contact the gods, that this is either an and or an old. Just gonna assume that's an and. Right, so if I assume that they basically always preface the Yeah, that they preface the nouns with the adjectives to them, like great works just as we have. Then this would be great work. This would be must. Then we have great work. We have old language or old tongue. And that's the only two adjectives we have here, I believe. By another tribe, that's an adjective. Great work and old tongue is the only two we have here. Right, tribe gods speak and all other tribe fight. Like all other tribe fight, that kind of makes sense. And this could mean that the gods... The Fubu, I wrote face, but I'm not sure about that. Gifted a great language. That could make sense. And then, yeah, great work. And I think the great also fits because we have here Puku Pebeja, which would be a great king. Bakujati. And then Bonu Gubuge Makudovu, which is another king they had. Gubuge again. And here we also have Great Temple. And the Gubuge again. The Gubuge shows up quite a lot as well. Especially when it comes to the kings. Other tribe. The Shorosho shows up quite a bit. I don't think it means brave, because here you have language, Gubuge gods. And then this would basically, like, every tribe brings their language to the king and then he forms the Nari language out of that. But the will and doesn't really make sense here. It could be that this is Old Tongue, based on like hieroglyphics, which I believe hieroglyphics were generally just exchanged for letters at some point in most cases. Not entirely sure. Like kanji are kind of hieroglyphics, aren't they? And they were replaced with hiragana. And then later katakana. Old gods. Wise. We don't have a row here, so we can't make Shorosho. Now, Vubu shouldn't mean king, because that is also already Febeja, or Pebeja. Right, others must continue our work. So one of these means our, and one of them means continue. I think... like, the Vubu shows up a lot. Here again. Then... this I don't know because I have no clue what this is. And I don't actually think it's a letter. I think it's a number. I just realized we have a Puva here. Which could be... similar to Pebeja, that the F is a P, and then the similar to some others that the O is spoken as a U. This could be power. Otherwise, yeah, the Vubu shows up a lot. The Gubuge shows up a lot. The Guru apparently, as long as the Guru doesn't show up on my tags. Shoroshu, King, Wise. Could Vubu mean human? It is a face. And then it would basically mean wise human king. The Shorosho, I believe, also shows up sometimes. But not here. All tribe, other language. Chushu. So that shows up here. The Vuwapa also shows up now and then. Yeah, here the Vuwapa shows up. Keshichi. That shows up now and then. Goja, I'm pretty sure means village, and then the Dushu I just guessed means house based on the village being like 3 houses. Right. Like the Rone appears like 3 times here alone. Kinda would need to know what this is. But for that I'm pretty sure I have to go through the obelisk because that's the only other area where those appear. The Vuwapa doesn't show up on the stele, I don't think. No. This is also still just a guess. Like, this is a very different game from most other games I've played. Massively different in that, at that. The village shop, sure. The tablet alpha... No, the tablet beta. I think that might actually be hieroglyphics at some point on the left. Could be child. Could also, because the smaller thing, the human is the smaller thing, could also be a building. Like, that's the human, that's the building. And I'm pretty sure that this is just the old Nari. So the language they spoke before. Or like, written before. And I'm not sure about the Vubu. I think it might actually just mean like human, person. The Vuva part, I'm not entirely sure. And if you make a distinction between, like, this is an ancient people who like, ancient people kind of had a thing with gods. I don't think there's any ancient people that didn't have some kind of god. So you would make a difference between you would make a difference between a human king and a god king. And yeah, wise human king, Shuroshu, all tribe language. And then took all of the tribe's languages and made their own language. Or like, combined it. And then do we have the Vubu anywhere else? Here we have the Kishije, which is also showing up on tablet B down here. Which could kind of mean nation or something like that, or land. Bunu. Right, wait. Bunu. Bunu. I think you might be correct with child. Because in this case, then we'd have here that the great king Bakujati had a child, Makudovu. Because that would make more sense as then he built Makudovu. I think it might. And then Gubuge could be something like begets. Like Name or Mena begets Nari. Like they're from a different tribe. And then Bakujati begets a child, Makudovu. The child doesn't show up here though, doesn't? No. Does the child? In this case would also be like gods gift human power. And the Shuroshu kind of always shows up with like the great language gift. It's always like, but it's not spoken, it's like he collects it here. He collects from all the other tribes the language. The Gubuge, I believe, is something like begets, like it creates something. Then I wish there wasn't Guro. Oh yeah, well. Govu could be. Does the Govu show up anywhere else? Govu here. The Vuvapa also showing up here again. Because if we say that the list there is like old language with the hieroglyphics and then new language, then this would basically old Nari, new Nari. In which case this would basically be like the language begets new gods or something like that. Anyway, thank you for checking in, because that was a lot more progress than I would have made on my own. Okay, let me see something. Bopo and the Ravoko. Shoot. The Nuno would make sense for others. Not exactly. If you check, for example, here. Here, Pebeja with 1 dot and then Pebeja with 2 dots. Which is why I assume that this is like a king and then another king. That this is like, it's both are kings, but they very specifically refer to two different kings. So they have one triangle and then two triangles to make sure everybody knows this is another king. This is a different king. That's my assumption with the triangles there. But that is, I should check. Is there any buko with like 1 triangle above? There's again with 2. 2. And then there's Vubu also with 2. But I'm pretty sure Vubu here shows up with another symbol. So if the symbols have any importance, then I'm pretty sure it's always kind of just regarding the sentence itself. But yeah, you're right. The buko kind of always shows up with 2. Does the buko show up? No, here it shows up with 1. But here it specifically says old gods, which, if it translates to everything, then this would be different gods. Not the old gods, but new gods. It could be the case, but I don't think it helps that much, unfortunately. Right, the shoujo. That could also be the case, that it is always gods And then one of it's just old god. No, here's also gods with one triangle. The Choshu, does it show up anywhere? I'm looking for the Choshu and the Jata. Choshu, Jata doesn't show up anywhere else, huh? No, not really. And they're also not repeated on this. No, the charter is repeated. I assume so. Like in most cases. In most cases it appears to be a boku with 2 triangles. I've seen the buko now with one triangle twice. The Jaka, she appears to show up quite a bit. King of Kings, that could make sense. And then King of Kings, then this would also be Bakujati, child of Makudovu. Mena of Nari. Language of Gods. That could actually be the case. Then the Gubu gear doesn't show up there. That would explain the Gubu gear also. Because the Gubu gear does show up quite a lot. And then that would be Great Temple of Pagomaru. Which also makes sense, because it's the Great Temple in Pagomaru. So, yeah. That could actually make sense, yeah. And if he collects all the languages of the other tribes, of the other kings, then he would be the king of their kings. I'm gonna note that down for the Gubuge. So one thing that I find kind of interesting is that this game shows you a percentage bar, but I'm pretty sure it's a percentage bar of how much stuff you have filled, not necessarily how much you have correct. Like, if you ever played Obra Dinn, Return of the Obra Dinn, amazing game by the way, you should play it if you haven't. They kind of confirm after 3 whether or not you're right. And which is kind of funny because you can't just blame everything on the captain and fucking bail. But because they confirm whether or not you're right, it kind of makes it easier. Right, King of Kings, then this would be King Bakujati, child of Makudovu, that also makes sense. And then here we have the Great Temple of Pagomaru. Here we don't have a Gubuga. Do we have a Gubuga here anywhere? The Shoroshu shows up a lot here. But no Gubuga. Right, if I just read here, we have, under assumption we read right to left, we have others must continue our work. So others must continue our work. Our work continue, others must, or something like that, which sounds weird. Then we fear we will be conquered by another tribe. Right. In that case, the rune wouldn't be will. Because it would already be, this must not stop the great work. Oh. Is the rune this? Because then this would be math. This would be this and this. That would be kind of funny, actually, if that's the, if that's how they add things together. This would then mean Bopo would be not. Do we have the Rone and the not? Tribe not something gods. There's the Vubu. Poru. The Rone. A Pobo does show up. The Jake, I don't think shows up here anywhere. Buko. But I think Buko might be gods, yeah. It sounds correct. Like you have a great temple of Pagomaru and then there's something gods speak. This, and then there's just a guru. Oh gods. Mena wise. Like this would be a Mena wise human. Do we have the guru anywhere? No. I kind of feel... Right, I'm just gonna lock that in currently as human. I'm still not sure about this and not. Stop. In that case, Ravoko would be stop. Which... It kind of feels like they have something going on like Japanese where the verb is at the end of the sentence. And I'm pretty sure the Romans had something similar. And it basically said everything and then stopped with the verb. I have not had Latin in so long, and I was very bad at it. I'm gonna check. If I say stop here, does this stop show up anywhere else? Not here. Other tribe, fight great. There's the guru. There's the Shorosho again. No stop here. No stop here. I also... Right, the stop doesn't show up anywhere. So... This... this Ravoko doesn't show up anywhere. Now, there is... Right, so... If we just split the first sentence into others must and continue our work, we would have, if the verb is at the end, our work continue, other must. Shokano, let me see. I don't think I've noticed it anywhere else. Not on the obelisk. The statue has very little wording actually on it. Oh, this also makes sense because this would just be a statue of the great King Bakusanti, who was the child of Makudovu. Yeah, that makes sense. Doesn't appear that it shows up anywhere else, the Shokano. Now, one thought I have. Great Temple of Pagumaru is where gods speak. Because I assume they'd have an is word. Not S. Is. Now, if we take that, we would have basically math here. This and is. I basically thought, like, if you have math, you have something. If you add something up, you have something and something else, which then is something, a third something. And the only other thing is like result or sum, and I'm pretty sure this is just math. I'm pretty sure those are numbers, and that's just an addition. And then we also have where does stone speak? I assume this is just like a math lesson. Because this, if you think about it, no one says this and is. No one, if you do math, you don't go this and this plus this is something. You basically just, this is something I'd expect in a school. Where children learn math for the first time, and it's just, okay, this and this. That, again, my assumption. But then this would also, is where God speak. That would make sense. And the Vuvapa did show up somewhere else as well. Not here. It would be here. The Kuvuno. It doesn't actually show up that much. Apparently. I'm gonna say that this is like our work continue. But the problem is that the Janta doesn't really make sense in the second sense. In the second case, in the second sentence. I think that the Shubono is is we, because we fear we will be conquered by another tribe. The we only shows up in the second sentence, but it shows up twice there. That's why I assume that the Shubono is we. Maybe the Jata is by. So continue work by others must. Others must continue our work. And then here this would be conquered by other tribe. Does the Chuve show up again? Chuve. I don't think it does show up again. Language of gods is something. That also makes me think that Vuvapa is just an is. But the Chuve doesn't appear to show up anywhere else. And the charter also doesn't show up anywhere else. In that case, the Rupu would be probably we fear and the Juve will. Or what would it be? We will be conquered by another tribe. What is the Shokano? The Shokano doesn't show up anywhere else, I don't believe. Rupu. Does the Rupu show up anywhere else? Gods, human, grift, great language. There's the Jake again. The Rupu doesn't appear to show up anywhere else, I don't think. Govu. Guru. No Rupu. No Rupu. Alright. I assume the artifact is basically how you check at the end whether or not whether or not you're correct. Right. Conquered by other tribe would make sense that you then don't have... That you then don't have the verb at the end because by other tribe is specific for this verb. We fear we will be conquered by another tribe. Right, the Shokano and Rupu is a problem I currently have. then the shoujo would be our. If we assume that the shokano and the must, if the shokano, our work by others must continue. That could very well be the case if they have like weird grammar. And then we fear we will be, the Juve would be will be conquered by other tribe. This must not great work stop. Old language speak and God's contact. Could be the case. That would of course throw out my entire thing of they have a word for every other word. But if we say continue, I think that's also the only point in which either of those words show up. Then this would be like we fear, we will be, we will be, or just will, conquered by other tribe. This must not great work stop. Is there any Toru and no? Is there any continue? I have a feeling that this is like a year. That this is like a number and then year. So like seventh year or something. This would be fear gift human power. But this is the one god. If the plural and singular is correct, then one god, fear gift human power. Is Shorosho maybe understand? Where does Shorosho others gods human understand? Gift great language. Because this would then basically mean all tribe understand other language. Which would not be that much of a difference from speak other language, but it would be... Why is human king understand all tribe language? That would make sense. And then if you go with the plural singular again, this would actually just be one single language. So that makes sense. One work. Others would again be plural here. Others must continue a word, and this is specifically a single another tribe. The Juve doesn't show up anywhere else. doesn't look bad, I'm gonna be honest. And then they basically say they collect, he understands all languages, and then he language of gods is like new. I'm just gonna say the guru could be where. And then here we'd have like, where does stone speak? Oh, good luck on your test. I was also not gonna continue all that much longer because I want to eat something. But yeah, have good luck on your test. And also, have a nice evening and a good night. I'm pretty sure that this end is right. And then we know these two are more than 10. Because otherwise you wouldn't get, if it's math. I'm gonna do the math next time actually, I think. Right. Well, yeah, as mentioned, didn't want to continue too long anyway. As such, thank you for checking in, thank you for watching, thank you for your assistance. That was very helpful. Yeah, have a nice evening, have a good night, have a nice rest of your week, and goodbye.